Pretty sure it's edible because it's in section Validae, and it's very strongly suspected everything in section Validae is edible. So I uploaded this picture to Facebook, and the next day, and then this one just has a number because it's not described yet, but this is one that Rod Talos collected, and he knows about it, but he hasn't bothered to write it up yet. This one's really rare. I usually find it about 3 times a year. But it's pure white, but it's definitely edible because it has this vulva that flares out like this, and the base of the stem is not bulbous when you peel away the vulva, which means it's in section Caesariae, not section Phalloides like it looks like. But these are too rare and valuable to eat, so I always save them and bring them back. And then this is Amanita section Phalloideae, so these are deadly poisonous. This is another Automeris io.
Yeah, do they eat them?
No, I just put it up there.
Oh.
But these are probably undescribed. There's quite a few members of Amanita section Phalloideae down there. But you can call these destroying angels. And you can see that the base is very much bulbous. And then this one's Amanita yema. And these are super delicious and very popular down there. There's a lot of restaurants that serve Amanita yema. And almost everyone in the areas that they grow knows what they look like. And if they see one by the side of the road, they hit the brakes real quick and go get them. But you can see a section Caesariae. So it has the vulva that flares up and the striate margin. And they hatch out of these eggs. This one grows under oaks. And so, yeah, start out, looks like a puffball over here, but then if you slice it open, you can see the red outline. And then they come out of the egg and turn into a big old Amanita. And they're super good. And they sell them in markets really often. This is a little fruit stand in Oaxaca, and there's the Amanita yema for sale there. And this is my friend Marta, and this is also Amanita yema. And a whole other bucket of bromeliads and all sorts of other edibles too. This is Amanita section Lepidella. These are very often poisonous. Though some of them are actually edible. So maybe some DNA sequencing can help us untangle that mess and figure out which groups in Lepidella are the toxic ones and which groups in Lepidella are edible. In China they eat some Lepidellas, but not in North America. And this is the most delicious mushroom that I've tasted in Mexico, Amanita rubescens. And this one's really old and melty, but when they're fresh and good and young, they're super good. The flavor is kind of hard to describe, but it's a little bit like whitefish. It's just like really savory and delicious. Usually you don't find very many, but occasionally you find a whole lot. And then here's Amanita subsection solitaire. These are super rare. And they unfortunately absorb a lot of moisture from the air. So I dried these, and then I didn't put them in a Ziploc like I should have, and they became undried and turned back into a pile of slime. And I kept, this year I returned to the exact same spot, and of course they were not there. But it's really cool because the whole Amanita is covered in this really fine powder.
Are you tracking your spots with GPS?
Yeah, I track all this. I carry GPS everywhere. It really helps down there. And then when I take a picture of a mushroom, then I take a picture of the GPS. And so that records the exact latitude and longitude with my mushroom photos. And then I add all of my photos to mushroomobserver.org. And then if I have GPS data, then I put it in there. So you can get the exact coordinates for a lot of these mushrooms just by searching for them on Mushroom Observer. But Mushroom Observer is a really neat website because you upload your pictures there, and then everybody votes on what kind of mushroom you have. So you can really safely eat stuff just by getting some second and third opinions. The muscaria in Mexico is the same one we have here. We call it Amanita muscaria of our subspecies Flavivolvacta. And it's pretty common at high elevation under pine. And this is Meaty. Meaty's a really good chemist, and she makes cancer drugs for a living, like brand new ones, molecules that have never been seen. often extracting them from mushrooms. So I uploaded this picture to the internet, and the next day, someone did that. This version's better.
Is it used as an entheogen in Mexico?
No, not really.
No.
I think some people parboil it and use it as an edible.
Yeah.
But what I do is I don't parboil it. I just fry it fresh in butter, and then I only eat 2 bites, and it is so delicious. It's one of the best edible mushrooms, and if you eat just 2 bites, there's no effect. If you eat more like 6 bites, it's kind of like having a couple beers, but it makes you really tired. So I think it's probably the best natural sleep aid. But I don't really want to be tired, so I don't really eat them very often.
Is that going to be safe long term?
What's that?
I remember hearing about fly agaricus one day potentially build up a quantity in you, and then it has an effect.
No, that's not how fly agaric works. It's a short-term thing. That's how a death cap would work. You eat little bits of death cap, it's a cumulative damage. But fly agaric doesn't really cause any damage. The worst that happens to you is you have a really bad day. Or a good day. That's less common, but that has been known to happen. Amanita xylinovolva is kind of their Mexican version of Amanita gemata. So this has the same toxins and drugs as Amanita muscaria. Pantherina and apricot and a whole bunch of other Amanitas all have the same chemicals in them. Yep, Pantherina has a really brown cap. And then the other thing is you notice the warts on the Pantherina. These are universal veil remnants, and they're very discreet. They're like nice bumps. Whereas in the gemata group, it's a lot frostier, universal veil covering. But in the Pantherina group, the vulva has a collar. So you can see really well the collar at the top of the enlarged part here. So whenever you see that, you know you're dealing with the Pantherina group. And then Amanita polypyramid. Super huge. And I tacked a sensulato on there, which in Latin means in the broad sense. Because I didn't collect this because it was kind of old and it rotted by the end of the fungus fair. So all I have is this photo, and I don't have any microscope work or DNA, so it's hard to tell what it really is. But one day I'll go back there and find one this size, and then there's only one Lebedella down there that gets this big. And then this is Acera rubra. And a lot of people say this is invasive from Australia, but I think it might be native to the cloud forests in Mexico, because the Australian ones kind of have the tines come out a little bit differently. But this smells super bad, and it attracts flies. And then the spores are in the middle there, so the flies land on the spores, and then they fly other places and spread the spores all around. Also, you can see it was hatching out of an egg, so that's the egg there at the bottom. And then Elaphocoriceps alpheoglossoides grows on the Elaphomyces truffles and has these yellow rhizomorphs at the base. So when we find these, we dig down very carefully and get the truffles that are underground. They're not like good to eat or anything, but it's kind of cool to have them. And then here's a Cudonia. And this picture was taken in broad daylight without any sort of black background or anything. So what I did is I just set it to like f16, ISO 100, and then focused it really close. And so when you do that, like 100% of the light comes from the flash of the camera. So even though I was standing in broad daylight, you still get this really cool black background. It's really easy to do. It just takes a couple seconds. It's quicker than like taking a photo with natural light. But photos with natural light always have, look better. This is totally natural light here, and you can see, well, they're both good. But with these, if you look really close, you can see all these little bumps on the top here, and that means it's a cordyceps. And so I dug down, and it was eating this Coleoptera bug. So it's like a mealworm type thing that it was feeding on. There was a lot of cordyceps in Mexico.
Are they medicinal?
Probably. I sometimes eat them, and they seem, I don't know, nothing bad happens. But I never find like really enough to have any effect. So I think the thing to do is to bring agar dishes down there and culture them when they're fresh. And then you can grow a whole lot of spawn and eat the spawn, and then you can see if they're medicinal. But you can see this bug is pretty well colonized. And identifying the cordyceps often hinges on identifying the bug. So I always try to get good pictures of the bug. There's a lot of good Ramarias. And in the United States, you find that Americans are kind of scared of Ramaria because they say that they're hard to identify and some are poisonous. But in Mexico, they just eat every Ramaria as long as it's not too bitter.
Alan, I have a question on that last cordyceps.
Yeah.